All right, let's officially start. Hello and welcome to the Darren's Guitar Chronicles, Volume 8 release thing, which is this thing here. This thing here, this book here. Isn't it beautiful? It's also out in ebook, of course, today. And the important thing to remember is that the special launch day price of $2.99 for the ebook is available until I get around to changing it, which I'll do overnight sometime tonight. It'll go up to $5.99, so you get it for half price if you buy it right now. Those of you who are Patreon patrons, of course, will be getting it free. In fact, I already sent out a link to download it to you guys like a month ago. So if you didn't do it, I'll send it again or drop me a note, of course. For those of you who don't know what Patreon is, it's an artist patronage system, kind of like Kickstarter, except it's ongoing, and I ask people to pledge $1 per week to support the ongoing serial of Darren's Guitar Chronicles, but then people who are ongoing supporters get free stuff throughout the year, including things like free ebooks whenever they come out. I have a little tea. What we're going to do tonight, I'm going to answer some questions. I'm going to read a little bit. I also have a special thing that I did. You might remember we did a meme contest a little while ago, and I have done something fancy with the memes that I'm going to show you guys a little bit later. I'm going to click over to my Facebook window and try to see, let's see, where some people previously posted some questions that they want me to answer in the chat. So I'm going to look over there to remind myself what they were, and then I posted some there too. People have been asking me some really cool stuff. And of course, as you can see from the number right below, you can always text me your questions throughout this. That's a US phone number. So, wait, hang on, where's the phone? Here it is. So if you have a question that you think of or a comment that you don't want to post in the chat room that goes alongside the YouTube window, you can send it to me privately. I usually pick a winner out of all the people who send me questions. This time I'll be giving away a copy of the book, since after all, that's the new thing, the new hot thing. Let's see. Click over to Facebook, look at my I'm not going to do them in any particular order. The first one that came up in what I'm looking at is a question from someone named Anne, who's a longtime reader of DGC but doesn't comment much. Sent me an email saying, the characters in Darren's Guitar Chronicles seem so real. Are any of them based on real people? The truth of the matter is that a couple of people are based on real people, but they're usually not major characters. The background characters are often based on real people. Just there are actual real people in there under their real names, first of all. So there are a couple of I don't know, like disc jockeys, executives, whatever, sort of real people who are like we just mentioned, J.D. Considine, or it might be Considine, I'm not sure. The longtime reviewer for Musician magazine who would write the short takes column of rock albums, and who is still actually a rock critic. He's the managing editor and critic for Revolver magazine right now, I think, and he moved to Toronto some years ago. I've kind of lost track of him, but he's all my life been one of the major rock critics. Here's a cat, by the way. Hi, Oolong. Hi. Want to say hi to the people? Come over here. Yeah, why don't you get in my lap? Yeah, no? Okay. Just going to stand wherever he can be in the way, Pretty typical. This is what it's like here all the time with the cats. When he gets out, another one will probably get in my lap because they'll be like, oh, now there's room for another one. Yeah, hi. I was gone all weekend to a convention also, so the cats are feeling especially deprived and feel like they have to be here every second. Here, sit up so everyone can see you. There, that's Oolong. Oolong is of the three brothers that I have in cats, he's the one who feels the most proprietary toward me, that I am his person, and he is my cat, and the other two are just a cat each, and other people are just a person, they're not his person, so, yeah, he usually gets first dibs on my lap and so forth. Alright, anyway, what was I was answering the question about real people, so, and then there are some people, actually, who are fans of DGC who have been put into the story at different points because they are either because they made donations to be included or did various things to get themselves included. Won a contest or so on and so forth. So I have worked in some actual real people, and I let people choose whether they want to be listed by name or by description or what. So let's see, I'm trying to remember who some of them were. Sanders gets to appear as a college professor on the train that might be. Sanders, you might get a cameo again, because I think Courtney might be getting in touch with you soon. This is the thing. I introduce characters, but then people come back sometimes. A longtime reader named Shiri is the receptionist at the Betty Ford Clinic, who basically takes no shit from Digger whatsoever. Who else? Lena is a production assistant in when they do the one of the TV shows. They do a morning TV show. I can't remember. Did they do Good Morning America or the Today Show? I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Good Morning America. Darren probably can't remember either, so it's just as well. So there are real people in there, but most of the main characters, people you see over and over again, they just spring out of my head, fully formed, because they're all coming out of my subconscious, expressing something. I don't know. For those of you who didn't see it, there's an interview with me today on the Gay Book Reviews site. This is the site that used to be called Reviews by Jessie Wave, and now that lots and lots of people are reviewing it, they revamped the whole site. It's called Gay Book Reviews. I think if you Google Gay Book Reviews, it's likely to come up, and it's actually like gaybook.reviews is the URL. So there's a whole bunch of stuff talking where I'm answering questions that Lena actually asked about Darren being my alter ego and whatnot like that. So there's a bunch of deep psychological stuff in there if you're interested in that sort of thing. But yeah, and I try to make everyone seem real. I mean, as a fiction writer, I feel like that's my job, is to make all the characters seem like they could each have their own book and their own story, and every single person that they encounter has a story, that kind of a thing. But there's nothing more fascinating than people, right? So I'm gonna take my phone number down now so you can see the cat better. Hi, what are you doing? Yeah, he's like, why is that light so bright? And it's like, because if it isn't, I look purple from the screen hitting my face. Yeah. This is me au naturel, by the way, today, guys. I didn't have a chance to do makeup or any of that kind of thing. Too much time spent trying to install a new chat room on the website, the hour before the chat, because the old one went kaput today. Some of you might have seen last week where I was typing, like, it's weird, like the chat room keeps filling up with spam accounts and whatnot. And I emailed the NowTalk, which was the company that made the plugin and whatnot, saying, what should I do about this? And got no answer from them. And then today, their website, if I go log into the actual website, it's just like nothing comes up. My account is blank. It's like there's nobody home there. So I don't know. I think they've been knocked offline by spammers, spam bots, hackers, whatever. I don't know. So at the last minute, we installed another thing called FlyZoo. Thank you all who did join me in the chat there. For those who missed it, Darren gave us his top 10 or however many it was hottest movie stars list, and I'll be posting that later, probably in a liner note or whatnot in the website. We'll post a transcript, as it were, whatnot like that. So let me see. Let me check my producer's notes. I am my own producer, after all. Let's see. Right. Okay. I did say the things I needed to say. You might have seen, I actually did now paperback editions of all the volumes. This one is particularly fat. This is volume 6. This was the Jonathan Los Angeles section. It's like, God, I didn't realize it went on for so long. And yet that was part of the point, is that it feels like it goes on forever to Darren, even though it was really only some number of months of his life, not even a whole year. But time flies when you're having fun, and it crawls when you're not. So yeah, it's a little unfair in a way that Darren's narration is like, and then everything was fine. He skips right past some stuff like that, and then when things are going terribly, it's like, but I guess that's sort of the fun of reading his stuff too, is that you just get to enjoy it. Is that the right word? Enjoy it vicariously. You get to, I don't know, see see what the angst is without actually having to experience it yourself. Okay. All right, some little chat messages are now popping up. I'm going to close them. Those are not actual things, sorry. And I'm going to get back to my YouTube window, I hope. Ooh, okay, I apparently have lost my YouTube window. Oh, there we are. Okay. Let's see. Have you ever switched point of view in a revision of a piece? Actually, the entirety of Darren's Guitar Chronicles was not originally in Darren's point of view. And I don't know why I thought this exactly. When I very, very first started writing it when I was a teenager, I had this feeling that it was like a book about him, and it was going to be, I believe my original plan was going to be 5 books, and there were going to be 5 different narrators, and Remo was going to narrate the part that was from like the early days. Bart was going to narrate the part where he arrives at music school to, another section, like it was going to be like each one was a different important person in his life. And I floundered around writing. I still have a bunch of pieces like that. And the short story that does appear on the DGC website, that's Remo's story, is the last surviving piece of that stuff, where I took what I had written and then I rewrote it actually for a short story class in my undergrad days at Brown. And it was the first story that I had turned in a fiction workshop, where the teacher was basically like, he took me aside after the class and was basically like, you have a future in fiction and you need to decide what your important stories are. And which was a really interesting and important piece of advice for me to receive at that time. A lot of the time in short story workshops, like most of the feedback you're getting is about, work on your dialogue or work on your characterization, or your prose needs to be smoother, or you need to develop your, it was about the nuts and bolts. And he was like, you need to take a bigger picture view, and, you can write. That's not an issue. Stop worrying about that to figure out what you want to write. And it was shortly after that, so then I graduated, got a job in publishing, this and that. And then when I quit the job in publishing and went to get an MFA, is when I started over and I said, I'm got to write from Darren's point of view. And that's when things really took off. So most of what you see on the first 200 chapters that are on the website are what I wrote in grad school. That was the first stuff that was from Darren's point of view. And it was really interesting to, excuse me, cat, to see him finding his voice, because of course that whole first section of the book is him finding his voice as a human being, so, but then to have him sit down and be like, I'm not a writer, blah, blah, blah. It was, I don't know, there's many layers of this thing. So that one, Darren's point of view is what had to change. So I changed from someone else to him. And then throughout the whole 5-book idea completely, although the main plot points have still continued to come up. I always knew there would be certain things that would happen, with career-wise and record company-wise and whatnot like that. And it's happened once or twice in a short story too, where I get usually like halfway through a short story and suddenly realize that I'm telling it from the wrong character's point of view. But usually not, because usually when I get an idea for a story, who tells the story and what voice it's in is part of the idea. It's sort of inherent in it. And it's just occasionally you come up with something better where you're like, oh wait, it would be really great if I do this other thing and do another thing. Thank goodness I have not yet had the problem of basically writing an entire novel and then being like, hang on a second. I'm a little bit afraid with one of the novels I just turned into a major publisher, that the problem is that it's told from the wrong character's point of view. But I think maybe it's more just the usual sort of writer, just finish something and then you're terribly afraid everyone's going to hate it and that the editor is going to hate it. And usually once the actual feedback comes back, it's usually like, oh, actually that was fine. So I don't know. Writers are a terrible judge of their own work a lot of the time. And I'm usually very happy with things, but this one I'm really like, oh, I don't know. I'll worry about that one later though. Let's talk about Darren more. Thanks for sharing that. I'm encountering that myself, is what this commenter said. Yes. And yeah, sometimes you're just like, wait a second. Part of the thing is always to remember that you're outside the story but you're trying to put yourself inside the story, and you're trying to put the reader inside the story, and sometimes putting them right in the main character's eyes, it doesn't always work. Sometimes it has to be reflected on them. And somehow I had thought that Darren was such a, I wouldn't say such a liar, that's not the right word, but Darren had such a tight focus, in the beginning, that I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to tell his story from his point of view. But as it works out, most readers find out right away what an unreliable narrator he is, and the more they get to know him, the more they can suss out what he's lying to himself about, and that becomes part of the fun, is figuring out what Darren is not telling you, or realizing or yelling at him that he's, what are you leaving out, or what are you forgetting? And it becomes sort of part of the experience of reading it, is knowing that Darren is censoring himself at various times. So, it's kind of fun. And that's fun for me as a writer to be able to play with that kind of thing. The unreliable narrator is great. And the fact that I think I and the reader are constantly trying to kind of fill in the gaps is part of what keeps us so interested. And the fact that we're right so often, the readers are almost always right. I see so many comments on, chapters on the site, and I can't really comment back, oh, you're so right, because then it'll be a spoiler for other people. But, you guys are always pretty much right on. Very rarely are you guys off on a tangent, And Darren is not trying to be misleading. It's the other thing. He's not like he's trying to give red herrings or something. He puts it out there. He just is very understated about some things, and then, whatnot. There's some stuff he's been understating now for, the last 100 chapters that is about to break loose. So that's not a spoiler since I've told you what it is, but you will all recognize it when we get there. Trust me. So, yeah. So let's see. Let's see. Going back to the Facebook window. All right. Other questions I should answer. So you said in a liner note that Darren's lived where you lived, New Jersey, Providence, Boston. But since then, he's lived in Los Angeles and Spain, and you haven't. Basically, what's up with that, and what other cities are we going to see Darren live in? Okay, let me see. What other cities is Darren going to live in? Okay, I can't necessarily tell you what other cities Darren is going to live in, because that might be considered a spoiler. But yeah, there's a point where Darren's life and mine are very closely linked, and then partly for sort of reasons of research, that it's much easier to write about places where I've actually lived. And then there's the fact that Darren is an alter ego of mine, and that he's part of how I process, how I think about my own creative life, and whatnot. But then there's the stuff that diverges too. So, like he just lived in New York City for, I don't know, a couple of months with Jordan, for example, and I've never done that. But I'm from there, so, and he's, I don't know, there's sort of like, there's the reality, and then there's the alternate reality of what could have happened in my life, so, and those things can happen to him. So yeah, I'm not sure. God, how can I answer this question without completely spoiling things? There will be some more moving around, a little bit here and there, but there's always going to be constant moving around with him because of gigs and Los Angeles and, this and that. And it's like he's wants to avoid ever living in Los Angeles again if he can. So, and, whereas like if I were going to move to the West Coast, it would almost certainly be San Francisco where I would end up. But that's because the industry I'm in versus the industry he's in, completely different, right? So, I would be moving to Portland, right? Portland, Oregon, because that's where all the cool writers are now. So, because they can't afford to live in San Francisco anymore. But, it's 1991 in the story, so San Francisco hasn't gotten insanely expensive yet, I think. That comes around, 94, 95 maybe. So, I don't know. I have to check my facts. One of the questions Lena asks me in the interview is, how hard is it to write, do you have anachronisms in the writing of this piece that's in the 1980s. And I don't think that I do, but the thing that's hardest is to go and figure out, okay, but which year did the cell phone come in, and which year did, these different things, because they affect the story. And also music and concert technology was changing so drastically at that time, where it's like, I think there's like there's a conversation that when they're on tour in 1989, where Lewis is basically like, IntelliBeams are cheating, it's too easy, because the IntelliBeam was still a fairly new concept in lighting, for stage lighting, where you could change colors instantly and you could point them more very directly and whatnot. And it's like now it's going through a whole change again with LEDs and projection systems, and whatnot. So it's like if I was writing a thing now, I'd have to relearn it all again. So it's like I do a lot of research, like stage, deep dives on like the blogs of stagehands and this and that. There's people out there writing blogs about every possible thing you can imagine. So there's roadies, there's tour managers, whatnot like that. So I'm reading all kinds of cool stuff about stuff that's happened now, but then what was it like back then is trickier. It's a lot trickier sometimes. Or to figure out, what was this venue like? I mean, I just the chapter that posted today that takes place in the Tower Records in Annapolis. I don't know how many of you noticed, but there's actually very little description of what the Annapolis Tower looks like. Part of that is that I could not find an actual confirmation of what it looked like then. So, obviously it's closed now. The whole tower chain is gone. So, I'm like, so I decided what I would do is put the pieces of description in that made the most sense for the story. And also Darren doesn't notice a lot sometimes, where he just is oblivious to the backgrounds around him. And that way people who were there can probably picture it, and people who are never there can picture whatever their nearest local large Tower Records was, most likely. So, it's the one in Boston was very unique, and the one in New York even was different. It was on multiple floors of an urban high-rise building, a skyscraper in the bottom couple of floors, and that wasn't true most places. Most places it was more of a strip mall kind of thing, or it was in a mall, but it was, whatever. So, and I could not get confirmation from Googling around of exactly what Annapolis looked like at that time. So, all right, we're coming up on 9:30. So let's see, should I give you guys the surprise thing now, or should I do the reading now? Maybe I'll give you guys the surprise thing now. So what I'm gonna do, I made a video. I made a fan video, even though I'm gonna still call it a fan video, because what I did is I compiled together all of the memes that people sent me for DGC over the years, and I'm gonna attempt to run it live here now through my little casting thing here. Let's see if I can get it to work, and hopefully my sound will go off and its sound will come on. Let me make sure I'm getting it in here. All right, here's hoping that all my technology works properly, right? And we're gonna take it live. I'm the rush of a bleeding heart. I'm the bruise of a rough start. I'm the dust that ignites the spark. Oh man, I was dark. They say that I'm blue like the night sky, that I'm too weird to live, too rare to die. I tried to blow my mind a million times, but I got light, and it's burning still, and it's burning still, it's burning still, and it's burning. Washing me out. There, okay. Now we're back. All right, let me make my levels back up again. Now I'm louder. Okay. I hope you enjoyed that. Sorry, that was an experiment to try to run a video through Wirecast. So that was all memes people sent me. We had a meme contest on the site and whatnot, and then I made a few more from quotes from recent chapters that were since then. So there we go. That was strange. I'm not sure why the song repeated when the video clearly on here had stopped. So I don't know. Bugs in Wirecast. Probably they want me to pay for a more pro version of it. There's several tiers of it. I don't know. So I think I've deleted it now. So anyway, I'll put the video up by itself, later, for people who want to share it, and I'll embed it on the site, and so forth. So anyway, hi, back. I'm back. Next time I'll know to win the video at the end, right? So hopefully we're all back. You guys have more questions? Please put them in the chat window. I can see it. I will try to remember to look at it. I'm gonna ask you guys again. I'll give away a book to a questioner. Make a comment. Ask me something. We only have actually a couple minutes really left of actual question and answer, because then I'm going to also read a little bit for you guys tonight. We've got about 15 minutes or so of Q&A before I read that. Hang on, let me drink some more tea. All right, what are you all drinking out there? I hope that you all have something good. I'm drinking Honey Aroma Pu'er tea that I bought in New York at the Radiance Tea Shop. Thank you, Rose, for turning me onto it. It's a great little tea shop. Actually, there are two of them in Manhattan, and this one was from, I don't remember even which location it was from. They're really, really cool tea shops that have food, too. They're one of the few places in Manhattan you can get soup dumpling that's not in Chinatown, so... Darren will get hooked on soup dumpling later. Yes, we don't always eat the same things as each other, but we do have some tastes inside. Oh, so what's in my little banner down here now is a reminder that if you're not on the Moondog Fans email list, you can get on it. I don't send anything to it very often, but it does send you notifications when there's a new book coming out, when I'm doing a chat, some things like that, which is every couple of months, basically. So I was going to try to do it monthly, and I just haven't kept it up, so... there's not quite enough news to do it every month, but I also have a regular author newsletter that you can also look at. It's that's another thing. But if you just want the Darren news and not all my other novels, all my other things going on, places I'm speaking, this is the address. So I'll put my phone number back up again, actually, so that you can anyone who has more questions, you can text me your questions or anything else that you want to comment on, anything, if you don't want to put it live in the chat window for everyone to see. Will Corinne ever get her own point of view chapter? That's a good question. I am thinking I should do a poll, because I've kind of gotten into almost a tradition now of giving you a Christmas story, like a special story on Christmas. And I was thinking I might let you guys vote on who I should do it from, whose point of view I should do it from, and or maybe I'll just do it. I mean, I have a bunch of ideas, and I just haven't decided which I'm going to tackle. I also had a story kind of started recently, and I realized that I can't post that one without giving away massive spoilers. It's like, I want to do a flash forward, but then I'm like, how can I get away with this without giving away too much? I want to do a story of when Ford is 16, basically. Ford has just been born, so it's like, how can I do this without giving away too much? And I will see. Ford is not as oblivious as his godfather, but still, we'll see. So I don't know. I'll make a list and let you guys vote sometime in the next week or two on the site, maybe by Thursday. If I had been really organized, I would have gotten it done before this chat and been like, here's the URL to that, and whatnot. So okay, you guys all wrote down my phone number, right? I'm going to take it off the screen now. Anyway, let's see. What else was I going to answer? But yes, I'd love to write some from Corinne's point of view. She's a really complicated and interesting character. And from Darren's point of view, you don't always know all what's going on with her, obviously, because he's like, Corinne is Corinne, and, you know, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, Darren gets handed drinks over and over in DGC, but what does he actually like to drink? Darren is a bourbon drinker because Remo is a bourbon drinker, you know, and he's, you know, although he's not, you know, and he likes a good beer from time to time, and you know, when he's younger, he likes the really dry, crisp American beers, which taste mostly like seltzer water, as far as I'm concerned. But that's, you know, that's what he's used to, and then as he travels more, he'll try more different things and, you know, whatnot. And I think here's the answer to a previous question. Maybe there's going to be a residency, you know, later in Germany or something. He's going to learn to drink dark German beers. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see if that is actually in the flow of the story or not. But me, I really prefer the dark beers myself. But, you know, but I learned to drink Guinness working at a Renaissance fair, and the way they convince you that you should try it is they put ice cream in it. not officially at the fair, just, you know, backstage, you know, hanging around after hours. You know, fill up your mug with Guinness and put some ice cream in it. You know, vanilla ice cream, or, you know, like butter pecan, you know, or caramel, that kind of thing. Guinness is great. You know, root beer float is nothing. The Guinness beer float is excellent. And then eventually you're like, you know, I don't really need the ice cream. You know? So that's how I learned to drink Guinness. That was the first beer I ever liked. I had a lot of formative experiences in Renaissance fair land, as it were. I should write a book about that someday, but someday. I don't know. Let's see. Here's another question. It'd be great to have more point of view from the ladies. Or Bart. We want more Bart. I know. Bart has been working on, by the way, a liner note for like 4.5 years or something crazy like that. So I didn't, because this is the launch chat for book 8. I also didn't say, by the way, this is also the anniversary of Darren's Guitar Chronicles. This is the 6th anniversary. So the site has been online and in serializing for 6 years, which is amazing. And I'm like doing the math now, like, what percentage of my life is that? That was a lot, actually. So, you know, is more time gone by in real life than has gone by in Darren's time, right? We start in 1986, we're 1991 now. Oh, only slightly more. But yeah, it's like, here it is, it's November. we're going on. But yeah, it would be great to have a Bart chapter, I think. So so Corinne, Bart, Ford. Who else should we offer in the, you know, if we had a Christmas story? I don't think I'll put Christian in that list, because Christian's Christmas stories are terrible, you know, and last year's Christmas story was a terrible downer, wasn't it? You know, so maybe not. I mean, I don't know. The whole thing is that it's not that bad anymore, you know. Things are in fact better than, you know, it gets better. Right. For those of you who did not heard the Christmas story because you're more recent fans or whatever, go back through the website, and there's a video of it on my YouTube channel. There's an audio podcast of it, and there's a chapter that you can read from last Christmas, and I'll link to it again this Christmas, obviously, so for people who want the flashback. But it is a flashback story to when Darren was a teenager. Yeah. Let's see. It's interesting too, because Bart is a complicated character, but he's not complicated to Darren. You know, he's very, very constant to Darren. I mean, he's a constant stalwart best friend, and he's, you know, there's, I think, a hint in the recent chapters that he and Michelle are having something, you know, and of course Michelle's his like one super long committed relationship, and before this, Bart was a complete womanizer. You know, and there's something about her that's different, and it's like, I kind of almost want to write something from Michelle's point of view. But there's another. Any more uncomfortable Thanksgiving dinners? There's going to be all kinds of terrible holidays, I'm sure. So, Darren and Ziggy are here, like, kind of trying to build a relationship, but they're like, there's this constant struggle between, sort of like, well, what are the definitions of this relationship? And Darren inviting him to come to Christmas, and Ziggy basically being like, I'm not sure I'm ready for that. In fact, the section I'm going to read is from that last Christmas, Darren's last Christmas, not our real time last Christmas. Boy, I know, trying to keep all these timelines in my head, including reality, it's a lot. Yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna we're coming up on the time when I should read my chapter, actually, so maybe I'll do that first, so we'll have a couple minutes left at the end for some last-minute questions and reminders. Any reminders I should give you before that? It's launch day. If you haven't bought the ebook yet, feel free to go onto your favorite ebook selling sites. It's pretty be just about everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Smashwords, Kobo, etc. If there's one there it isn't where you would like to see it, let me know, and I will do my best to get it up there. But all right, I'm going to read a fairly short section, but that I thought would be fun for you to hear about Christmas time in New York. So this is, I'm reading from book 8. So this is near the beginning of the book. Darren has gone to New York to spend Christmas with Remo, the rest of the members of Nomad. Courtney's come with him, etc. And they've just had this Christmas party at Sarah's apartment, where she has this huge party where, everyone from the vocal teacher, who she and Ziggy are both using, to, miscellaneous music industry people, to, whatever. And Ziggy shows up at that, and at the very end, he and Darren have a little where they are like, kind of, hey, how you doing? But they don't really get a chance to talk very much. And then Ziggy puts his phone number in his pager number in Darren's pocket. Darren already knows this pager number. He has memorized it. He practically has it tattooed on the back of his hand. But although has rarely used it, but clearly a hint like, hey, I want you to call me. And obviously Ziggy's in town. They had thought he was not going to even be in New York at the time, so obviously he's there. So here we are now back at the hotel that night, the next night, I can't remember exactly. So yeah, of course, I'm reading from Darren's point of view. Ziggy had said I should page him whenever I needed to talk to him. Did it matter if we were on again or off again for that to apply? All the drinking had made it a little difficult to think. Maybe I was overthinking it anyway. Maybe the way to be on again was to call. I dialed the number, entered in the hotel number and my room number, and hung up, wondering if he was awake or if I'd just guaranteed myself a few hours of anxious insomnia. The phone rang gratifyingly quickly. Yellow, I answered. I guess you're not sleeping either. I'm on West Coast time, Ziggy said. There, it's only 3 in the morning. Uh-huh, I said, unconvinced. We sat there in uncomfortable silence for a few minutes. I was the one who paged him, so was it on me to say something? But he was the one who put the call me message into my pocket, so... Maybe we should get together to talk, I finally said. Can you get away from your family? He asked. For a couple hours, no one will miss me, I said, but I wanted to ask what you're doing for the holiday tonight, or tomorrow, or no pressure, but you could join us here. Darren, how should I put this? He breathed. I imagined him sighing with his eyes closed. Your group there is kind of overwhelming. I'm not good with crowds. I never thought I'd hear you say that, I said. You know what I mean. Actually, I don't. Explain it? I'm listening. I lay back to listen. Here's what he said. I mean, I'm fine with crowds if I'm the center of attention, but I don't want to be, and I shouldn't be, the center of attention at your chosen family's gathering. Why shouldn't you be? You outshine anyone in any room you walk into. This room felt like it was spinning slightly. I had definitely drunk more than usual. Like there's a spotlight on me? Like you're a star that fell out of heaven, Ziggy. You're the most gorgeous human being I've ever laid eyes on, and that's as true today as it was that day in the park. You're drunk. I'm telling the truth, I insisted. Because you're drunk. Because I've been to therapy. And I've realized there are a lot of things I could have been saying that I haven't been. I thought about what Bart had said, that maybe me being forthright and truthful about my feelings was actually scary to Ziggy. If so, this was probably freaking him out completely. Am I freaking you out? I'm not trying to. I just have this thing about the truth. Uh-huh, he said cautiously. And if the truth is, it's too late? Then tell me to go fuck myself, break my heart, and send me on my fucking way. Whoa, whoa! There was kind of a long silence while I guess he tried to figure out what to say to that, or get himself together. I don't know which. Darren, I didn't mean it like that. It's worth asking, though, isn't it? Is it too late? It felt crazy good that I could send him spinning by speaking so baldly. Of course, the only reason it didn't hurt like fuck to say was because alcohol had numbed me so much at that point. Did I wait too long to tell you? Is it just fucking tragic when I say it? He didn't sound angry, just urgent when he said, okay, you know what? I want to make a rule. No saying I love you over the phone. You don't want me to tell you I love you? On the phone. Seriously, I'm coming over there and then you can say it to my face. And you're not going to freak out and leave this time? He sighed. No. And this time I'm going to say it back and then we're going to find out how hard it is. How hard what is? To keep going when we realize that doesn't mean anything in the larger scheme of things. That was too hard to follow. All I really absorbed was that he was coming over. An hour later, though, he still wasn't there, and the coffee had failed to work, and I got drowsy. I did what might be considered a stupid thing then, especially in New York City. I unlocked the door, I left the chain stuck in it so it couldn't shut all the way, and then I passed out. When I woke up briefly, it was to make sure the person pulling the towel off my ass was someone I knew. It was. Ziggy kissed me on the back of the neck. There was sun coming in the windows, and the thought that went through my head was that he was wearing way too much eyeliner for first thing in the morning. And then I went under again, hoping that he'd snuggle up next to me so that he'd be there when I woke. I woke with one of those hangovers that feels like a railroad spike through the eye socket, but I didn't much care because I had an armful of warm, sleepy Ziggy under the covers with me, and I was too out of it really to remember where we were or what year it was or anything. And maybe it's stupid, but it was moments like that where I couldn't remember there was anything to be anxious about, and his skin smelled familiar, and everything felt right about having him cuddled up with me, that made me think there was something worth fighting for, something I was thirsty for, something I needed, even if once I came to my senses we'd start fighting again. But right then I didn't come to my senses. I dozed despite the headache. When I woke up the next time, Ziggy was blowing me. No, I didn't mind, even if, when I came, each pulse of release felt like a sledgehammer driving the railroad spike deeper into my skull. He came in my hand shortly after that, and even though my hair was still damp from the previous shower, that didn't stop me from getting in with him. We dried off side by side. I was suddenly reminded of the bathroom on the tour. It must have been in Toronto? I felt a wave of shame pass through me when I thought about how long it had taken me to get my head out of my ass and realize how I felt about him. And then a second wave when I thought about how that was almost 2 years ago. Or a year and a half. Still. Ziggy finger-combed my wet hair as if he knew my head hurt, though at that point it was more that the thoughts were painful than the hangover, I think. I pressed his hand to my cheek and closed my eyes. His thumb made gentle tracks under my eyes, even though I wasn't crying. I remembered those days when he couldn't speak because his throat was too ripped up. I remembered him touching me like this. I put jeans on, but hadn't managed to find a shirt yet when I tried a sip of last night's cold coffee. It was terrible. I poured it out and rinsed the pot and started a fresh one. Ziggy liked his with sugar, but no cream. I poured 3 sugar packets into one of the cups. In the other I put a creamer and the last packet of sugar. Then I looked into the hallway to see if a maid was anywhere nearby. Nope. She was way at the other end of the hall. I took the Do Not Disturb sign in, hoping she might bring fresh coffee supplies and fresh sheets. I dug around in my suitcase for a shirt while Ziggy got into the clothes he'd discarded when he climbed into bed with me. A slim black turtleneck, paisley-patterned vest, black jeans, and sharp-toed boots. Hanging over the back of the desk chair was an ankle-length, black-on-black brocade-patterned coat. We ended up sitting side by side on the clean side of the bed, waiting for the coffee to finish. I got up and brought him his coffee. We sat, sipping in silence for a little bit, him in the desk chair and me on the corner of the bed. So what have they got planned for you this year? I finally asked, because one of us had to get the ball rolling sometime. Still a bit up in the air, recording a new album at some point. Before that, maybe cut another dance mixable single, though, and maybe another movie theme song. I nodded. I couldn't help it. Some part of me inside cringed at dance mixable. Not that I didn't like dance music. I loved it for dancing. I loved what Jordan did with remixes, and I had a collection of 12-inch singles at home. But I still had this idea in my mind that a step upward or outward into the world of pure pop, pure manufactured hit material, was a step away from art, from artistic integrity, from musicality and the creative spark that drove me. But what drove me and what drove Ziggy could be two totally different things. I don't know why it took me so long to see that so starkly. Are you hitting the road at all? Not till there's an album to support, he said. Makes sense. I took a deep breath. If I go into the studio in April, he began, but trailed off. Gonna work with Jordan? I asked. Hope so. I like him, I said. Yeah. We had ground to a trickle again. Small sentences, small words. I suddenly remembered last night's phone conversation. I set my coffee cup down. I love you, I said. He put his cup down and brought his face very close to mine, so close I could see the darker ring of color around the warm brown of his irises. I love you too. And he kissed me, because I guess that's what you do at a moment like that. And then he asked, on a totally unrelated subject, will you come in the studio with me and Jordan? I'll be on the road with Nomad in April. He shoved himself away from me and pushing me back a little where I was sitting, but he was the one who flew to the window and looked out the alley. And we still never resolved what it would mean for me to play with you now anyway, I added. His back was to me, his shoulders tilted miserably. Zig. He didn't move. Seriously, what do you want from me? You know it would kill me to turn into some kind of parody of myself. He turned and looked. Kill you? If they rebrand you as Ziggy and the Moondogs and they want me to put on a moon suit or something? Yes, I'll be damned if I'm going to stand on a stage and play Candlelight for Union Scale, like some hired flack. Ah. He closed his eyes and I saw him swallow. Okay. I admit I really didn't think that through. That they were going to want you to do the old hits? And what it would be like for you. He opened his eyes. I admit it, okay? How many times are you going to make me apologize for making a shitty decision? How the hell was I supposed to answer that? I don't know, Zig. I guess however many times it takes until I stop feeling like shit over it, too. He sat down in the desk chair, looking defeated. I didn't feel like I'd won anything, though. Fuck. He hid his face in his hands. I went and rubbed a circle between his shoulder blades, because that's what you do when someone you love is hurting. Do you really not understand why I can't just cave over this? He turned and took both my hands in both of his. No, I get it. There has to be a way. He kissed the calloused tips of my fingers. I just can't stand the thought that we'll never perform together again. Okay, that felt like a railroad spike to the heart. He was being as blunt now as I had been on the phone, I guess. I mustered an answer, though. Never say never, Zig. Never say never. So, you guys all read that anyway, so. I know, that was a fun one. That was a little bit condensed from 2 different chapters to make it the right length for reading. But, all right, I'm going to check last time for questions. Let's see. Remo and Sarah would be interesting options, too. Yeah, Michelle would be fantastic. Yep, I agree. Let me see. Oh, and did I read all the questions off the Facebook page? I think I did. Let me just check. Let's see. Character seems so real. What's the deal with where you've lived and where Darren's lived? Darren's top 10 rock star crushes. Okay, he did movie stars instead. He just refused. Wattpad inspired me to ask if Darren and Jonathan still keep in touch. Yes, they do. As Darren answered in the previous thing. Yeah, Darren and Jonathan are still friends, basically. And at this point in the story, they're, Darren has not lost his number. and because they've been through so much together, Jonathan is actually a really important sounding board in a lot of ways. So yes, but Darren is not, does Darren keep in touch? Darren doesn't really keep in touch with anybody very well, but as well as anyone, yes, Jonathan is still one of the people he keeps in touch with. Jonathan has moved a couple of times, so it's very important that Darren check his email from time to time, because that's where he will find Jonathan's new number, because Darren is not clueful enough to find it out any other way. Yeah. Well, the light just like, when I move a little closer to it, a little further from it. Sorry about that. It's so bright. I usually have two lights, actually, and they cancel out a little bit, and then one of them burned out literally seconds before we went on the air. So it's been that kind of day technologically. I mean, it's like, had to install the new chat room minutes before the chat, the previous chat was supposed to start. Had to, it's just the world of technology. All right, we're coming up on time, so I'm just going to check one last time for questions. Any last questions? And I guess I need to pick a winner, don't I? Let's see. So, Sanders, Amy, Meg. Who else answered? Sickly Greyfoot. All right, looks like 4 of you asked questions in the chat tonight. Let me use the Dice Bag app. Oh, and there was one person who texted, whose name I don't know, but I'll count you as number 5. And I'll text you back if you win. All right, so I'm using the Dice Bag app because that way I can do as many things as I want. Since there are 5 of you, I'll use the 6-sided die, but we'll see what number comes up. Oh wait, let's turn the sound on so that you can hear you'll hear it go. Yeah. Number 1. Number 1. Who was number 1 in the chat? Sickly Greyfoot. Sickly Greyfoot, I don't know who you are, but you'll have to comment back to me. Email me with your information, and I will mail you a copy of the book. I'll add that to the little chat window here too. And thanks for joining me so much, guys. It's been these hours fly past. The next big thing that's coming is, of course, Volume 9 is what the chapters that are being published right now on the website. You'll know when we come to a nice end of the arc. I'm already working on cover art and whatnot like that. So trying to figure out what's going to be appropriate for the next cover. So, stick with the site. A bunch of interesting things are going to be happening. Anyone who came over here from Wattpad, of course, the website is ahead of you, and it's still going to be, I think I did the math, it's going to be 44 weeks or something before the 2 sites sync up, so it'll be a little while, but I'm fine with you guys reading wherever you enjoy it most. That's the most important thing, is that you are having fun reading it, no matter what platform you prefer. So, oh look, one last question from Sanders. Is Darren going to end up being one of those people who gets a flip phone and only ever replaces his tech when someone else makes him? No, Darren keeps up with a lot of tech, actually, but it's he's sporadic about it. I think when it comes to things like iPhone, iPad, whatever, he's on top of everything Apple because that's where all the music tech is too. So it's like he's always going to be the one getting the newest Mac when it comes out, because all the good music software was always for the Mac, whatnot like that. So, presuming that he doesn't, have terrible money problems, but computers are not that expensive compared to like cars, and he still doesn't have one of those. So we'll see how long will Darren hold out before he actually has to buy a car. We'll see. That no spoilers. I won't tell you guys that. So thanks so much for joining me. I will see you around the website. New chapter should be going up on Thursday as usual, and yep, have a whole. Yes, Darren will be the guy who gets a text and texts back 4 days later with, sorry, I was busy. That is true, actually. That is exactly what he's like, because, especially when you're on the road, it's like you don't realize that, he won't even realize that he hasn't answered a text, or that he's got voicemails sitting there that he hasn't listened to, that sort of thing. But we don't know anyone who's like that, right? So, okay, I'm going to hit stop on my little recorder. I'll see you guys around the internets and when the next book comes out. Thank you so much.